Students Who Design is a podcast and video series that bridges students and the design industry. By students, for students. Be sure to check out our website, studentswho.design.
This is Students Who Design.
Today we'll be talking with Dionisio Blanco. He studies game design at Ringling College, and this past summer was the first ever social VR intern at Facebook.
In this episode, we'll be talking about how to get started in virtual or augmented reality, dealing with imposter syndrome, and so much more. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Students Who Design is sponsored in part by Facebook Design. For more resources and information about designing at Facebook, visit facebook.design and check out open roles at facebook.com/careers.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Cool, I'm good. Just flew in. So how about you tell us more about what you do?
Well, right now I'm a artist intern with social VR at Facebook, and pretty much what I do is 3D model, animate, rig, etc., whatever it needs for rapid prototyping.
Okay.
So we're making a bunch of prototypes and in something that I can't really say, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
So could you tell us more about so you said a lot of words. You said modeling, rapid prototyping, and rigging.
Mm-hmm.
And as a 2D product designer, I don't know what any of that means. And I'm sure some of our listeners and viewers probably also don't know what that means, but they've seen it or read it.
So modeling is basically with any 3D authoring software. So it's 3D modeling polygons,
Okay.
right? And I use Modo right now. I'm actually a native Maya user, and I used to use Max back in the day. But those are like a bunch of different packages that all do basically the same thing, which is create a 3D mesh. Rapid prototyping is basically, I'm working with engineers mostly, so I'm working on a couple projects right now, and those have their own engineers, and I basically supply the art and the look for those prototypes.
Okay, so backtracking, how did you end up in all of this? From the time you were born to the time you're sitting here.
So when I was born, actually both of my parents are artists. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
What type of art?
Fine art.
Okay.
So I grew up around that, and I was like, I don't want to paint for the rest of my life. And I actually, in the early ages of high school, I fell in love with robotics, but then I was like, but I also don't really want to do this, and I want to incorporate art in some way. Mm-hmm. And then I was doing graphic design, but then I was like, where am I? What am I doing? And I pretty much focused on, I want to make games. Like, I want to make experiences. And that is pretty much, if you really think about it, VR opened up an entire new job market and medium for anyone that was working in the games industry. So that's pretty much how I'm here, because I study games.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you study games at the Ringling College of Game Design? Or
No, Ringling College of Art and Design.
Art and Design. So you go to a very specialized school. How does that environment feel? So I'm sure there are listeners and viewers who maybe they go to design school and they might feel that they aren't the best or that they shouldn't be there. And these cases of imposter syndrome, especially in a competitive college environment where you have people gunning for all the same internships, right, compared to a non-design school. How do you deal with that atmosphere?
I think a really important thing is to find that group of friends or just a support group. It's kind of crazy. A way that my year as a class differentiates from a lot of the other years at my school specifically is that we all came in and then we were like, hey, we have different skills. Let's help each other to kind of move forward. And that, when it came to applying for internships this year, let's say, it was super helpful because everyone was applying for the same things, but no one was really at your neck. It was more collectively moving forward because if you get there, then later down the line, your friend can help you get there, etc.
And have you ever felt like you shouldn't be a game designer or you're not meant to do that because you're not good enough?
Everyone has imposter syndrome.
So how did you deal with it? How did you cope with that?
Honestly, it's just about really focusing on what you want to get out of it, right? Okay. I enjoy making games. I enjoy making experiences. Sometimes it's hard. Everything is hard, but you kind of have to move past that because when you do, you kind of come up with something beautiful really at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And if you are a student who doesn't go to a college that specializes in the things that you do, What would you recommend a high schooler or a college student who wants to get into game design or become the animator or do social VR at Facebook?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because a lot of the things I have learned from my college, but most of it I've learned on my own. Like I learned 3D modeling before I even got to college. I kind of self-taught, and there's like millions of YouTube videos. There's like I work in Unreal Engine, and they have a shit ton of documentation. And when they say a shit ton, is I've taught myself how to program basically visual scripting through just their documentation and watching their live streams and like doing all of that stuff. Because I found it interesting and I was like, oh, that's cool. Let's like go in that direction. And I think the biggest thing is like, if we break it down, figure out what you want to learn, what you want to get out of it, and then move towards that goal as opposed to like being like, where do I start? And then never starting. Like start somewhere and then that just branch out. It's like working in and out as opposed to out and to in.
So you mentioned several tools, like you have Maya and Unreal and Modo and
there's a lot.
With like normal product design, I guess there's Sketch and maybe the Adobe products. With modeling, like it's a huge time investment, and in 3D and VR, like you're in that tool for a long time, and it would really suck if you pick the wrong one, right? Everyone thinks
there's never the wrong one.
Okay. So your advice would be to just pick a tool and run with it.
Yeah.
And become the best at it.
I would definitely say research, right? Yeah. Like I learned Maya because of school. And here I've actually learned Modo in the past like month. Like I had no idea what this software was, and I was like, but it's really fast, and once you know one 3D software, it's really easy to move across because it's the same concept. It's like if you know how to program, if you know programming logic, it's the same concept. Like Booleans are Booleans, right? Vectors are vectors. Like it doesn't really change that much.
And so you're working in VR, and there's essentially 4 or 5 elements that go into a virtual reality, right? You have like your lighting, your modeling, your prototyping, your physical spaces. And people don't realize that it's not just like a 750 by 1334 screen. Like it's much more. So what part do you specialize in, and what part would you recommend to get started? Because VR is like this huge beast. And
I guess, so with VR, it's not really like, I don't know if beast is the right word. It's just a medium, right? Okay. It's like film. It's like basically print. It's like an entire different. It takes a lot of elements, and like how I was saying before with games like that. That's pretty much what it is. It's nothing more than that. It's straight up just a game ported into VR, but now you have to design for a 360 space as opposed to just a 2D screen. And that becomes really important when you start looking at UX and UI in VR, which is more closely to what you do, right? Like you're a product designer, and that's like still not perfected at all in that space. And I guess I didn't really answer your question.
No, I think you did, in the sense that like there are these things that you have to take into account, and I think the word you used was medium, which is something that people don't think. Like people think virtual reality is like an app, right?
Yeah,
but it's more so like the iPhone.
It's straight up like a medium.
Yeah, it's like the iPhone.
Yeah,
right?
it's like developing for like mobile and
and I think that scale makes a lot of sense.
I guess like for anyone starting in general though, like the easiest way to start getting into a 3D artist sort of role, etc., is to start modeling and start somewhere. Like then there's different like roles in that as well, right? There a 3D artist in games or in VR specifically, they really have to worry about optimization and what it's gonna go towards. Like if you're on making VR for mobile, you have a shitty bottleneck, like a super shitty bottleneck. So you have to really learn how to make your models very low res, yet still look good, which is, in my opinion, better than most games that are out there. Like games are very high fidelity and they look very real, but that kind of takes the art out of it, because at some point, well, not at some point, right now, you can take a bunch of images and you can create a point cloud. Do you know what that is?
No. What's the point?
So there's this thing called photogrammetry, and I could sit here with my phone, take a bunch of images, not of this water bottle because there's reflective surfaces, but like anything else, and it will create a point cloud, and that will basically, I can draw out a 3D mesh from that with textures and everything. Did you play Battlefront by any chance?
No.
So they have a lot of really awesome artwork and photogrammetry in general, but most of it is photos from like the Redwood Forest, and they go ahead and they scan that, they retopo it, and then they basically touch it up afterwards. And me personally, as an artist and someone that came from a very like 2D or just painterly background, that's not that much fun for me.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me is to visualize that there's like this z-axis.
Yeah.
We don't think about that, and we don't think about all these pieces coming together to create this thing, or also this experience.
Yeah.
And another thing that I wanted to learn more about is that, you know, as broke college students, we can't all get the Oculus and the PC and the NVIDIA stuff. So what's like the most basic setup just to get started? You know, like, of course you can download the software on your Mac, but to really get up and running, what would you recommend?
With VR, there's no basic setup.
There's no, okay.
I guess you can do mobile dev, right? But still, like, nothing is really the same as getting into an Oculus and actually designing an experience that you have full like hand tracking and stuff like that.
So your recommendation, so if a school or university doesn't really support that in the sense that like,
well, get into 3D modeling, right?
And then so your suggestion would just be to get into one part of this medium.
Basically, look at what you need to get into an industry for games, and then run with it.
So you learned all the things, right? And this is such a new field where it's first of all, it's hard to find design opportunities, design internships, or places that will even pay you for design stuff. How does recruiting and how does all that work in this space?
I guess, to be completely honest, it's just, at the end of the day, it's applying, right? But to build a portfolio for that is, it's a shit ton of work.
So you need a portfolio?
Yes,
oh, okay.
100%. You need a portfolio, you need a website, and that, no matter what kind of area of design, or like, I'm a 3D artist, we're not expected to be good at graphic design. Luckily for me, I really enjoy graphic design.
Why are you not expected to?
Because 3D artists don't really have to deal with like graphic design, right? But it's shitty when you get to places like UX UI where you really do need those things. It's like, oh wait, how is this gonna frame into like what we're doing? But your website, it should look good. It should look professional. It shouldn't look like just like Windows 98, super bad HTML.
So I think so let's say you have the website, you have the experience, you have some side projects that you can throw up there. What's next? Or what did you do?
What did I do?
Yeah. So you had your stuff, you had your website.
I mean, well, okay, let's roll back a little bit. We'll probably cut this out.
Okay.
What do you mean, like?
So I'm trying to get more at you didn't apply for anything.
Okay. I guess I can start with like me as a sophomore, right?
Yeah.
Or just like.
Yeah. So you're a
Well, here. I mean, we could probably cut this out. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can ask us like, so how did you even begin thinking?
Yeah. So how did you even begin thinking about applying and stuff? Like you did this. You were very passionate about games. You maybe had a decent website. Yeah. What was nice? So
like I think my sophomore year of school, we're not actually encouraged to apply. Because
your college?
Yeah, because we're all like, that's when we get into actually learning all the software and learning all the tools. And I was too busy working to even apply for anything. I was just like head deep.
So
like,
you're working as in learning, not like working a job. Okay.
Yeah. But when it came to like the end of the semester and summer came around, I wasn't just gonna sit there and like do nothing. Right? Like, I think it was me and my friend Peyton. And my friend, like me and my friend Peyton were sitting in his room. We were like just binge watching Silicon Valley. Yeah. And then we were like.
Stereotypical.
Yeah, right. Right. It's pretty funny. But we were like, oh shit, what if we were to like start a company to do virtual reality interiors, right? And
Virtual reality for
interiors?
interiors. Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is, I've been digging into the space for a while. I've been digging into the space before the consumer editions or like basically DK1 had just come out.
How old were you?
Huh?
How old were
I
you?
was probably freshman or maybe like a senior in high school.
So before the DK1 came out.
Yeah.
And you were.
I was digging.
So before the DK1 came out, you were gonna start a VR company.
No.
Okay.
No, before the DK1 came out, I was looking like I was always, as soon as someone said they were making an actual virtual reality headset, I was like, holy shit, that's gonna be like awesome.
Yeah.
And most people were very skeptical. They're gonna be like, it's gonna be gimmicky. It's gonna be like, nah, dude. You like if you work in the 3D, like, I guess that's the difference, right? Like if you work in the 3D medium, you instantly realize like, oh wait, I can look everywhere and there'll be something there. It's kind of groundbreaking, and it was, and it did as expected. But when so back to me and my friend Peyton, we were like, that'd be cool. And I used to work in I guess architectural visualization. So it was kind of natural. I was like, well, this will be a fun practice to kind of see what we can get out of it, right? Bring an apartment to someone in like China, and they can walk through their home, basically. And I thought, as an early application, that would be easy, and it'd be fast, and it'd be doable. And the funny thing is that now that's like taking off completely.
So why aren't you taking off with it?
Because I had to go back to school.
Okay.
Like we spent the summer and we built a demo, and I had never actually like really delved into programming either, which is when I really started getting into that as well.
So this was like a 2 or 3 month like.
Not even.
Thing?
It was like a month.
So then you like started and then you like.
We
pieced
built
out.
it. Yeah. So it was basically we got out of school for a month. We built the demo. Then after we got the demo, we flew out to New York and pitched to a couple of VCs, and then.
What did that pitch look like?
Kind of like a room like this, but we had to like set up super quickly, like set up the Vive, because the Oculus hadn't even been released with touch controllers yet.
That's crazy.
So it was the Vive with room scale, and we had to like set it up super fast and just kind of like let someone experience that space. And something that I really focused on, and that is how does anyone from like young to old experience that space, because younger people are like they can pick up, I guess, input and controllers faster because we play video games or we play with our phones. But older people, they have no idea like what they're doing. So that was a huge deal to kind of like get that moving across really fast. So
how did you know that this like specific demographic?
We just have to test, right?
Yeah. Okay.
It's more like, I guess, what's the word? Just forethought, right? You really have to think about, because younger people are not going to buy your $3 billion apartment.
Exactly.
Right?
So you pitch to these VCs with your Vive, and
I should clarify. The company was me, my friend Carla, my friend Peyton, and my friend Mauricio.
Okay.
And it was 4 of us. Carla's an architect. She goes to Carnegie Mellon. Peyton's with me at Ringling, and so is Mauricio.
Okay.
But Carla was basically the one who drove the look dev. I did a lot. We all did modeling and texturing and whatnot. I did a lot of the programming and blueprints, and then just setting everything up and the scene together and the lighting and etc. So I was kind of like, I guess you could call it the glue to kind of like bring everything together. Yeah, but everyone else did a shit ton of work in a super short amount of period of time.
So you did this thing for a month, and then you went back to school.
Yeah.
And then you went back into recruiting, you're starting another company.
No, so we didn't keep it going.
Okay.
Because we were realistically selling a service, not a product.
Okay.
Right? And you can't have a service without the people. So we were
yeah.
kind of like, all right, well, we can pick it up if nothing comes up next summer. But by that time, I was applying to a couple places for internships and whatnot.
So I assumed you applied to Facebook.
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
Yeah,
Just like you just walked in. Okay.
Yeah.
So you applied to Facebook. What do they even ask you, or what do they look for? What does any company look for a art animation intern? Mind you, being the first art intern at Facebook.
Yeah. So it's funny because they don't look for the typical things, right? And I have a couple.
What are those typical? What do you mean by typical things?
Like, so if you're applying for a game industry job,
Yeah.
you're going to do one thing, and you're
Okay.
going to do that thing super well. Like, if you're applying to Naughty Dog, you better be great. Like, you better be amazing, and you better do that thing really well. But
Yeah.
that's all you're expected.
Okay.
to
So
do.
what are the expectations here?
You're expected to do a lot of things, right? Like,
Okay.
it's not to say don't be like a star at like what you love to do, but I've always been a person that has been I like to think of myself as a Swiss Army knife, right?
Okay.
Like I'm, if you ask me to, I can go ahead and rig a character and animate it for you. It might not be the best animation of your life,
Yeah.
but I can go ahead and do that.
So you essentially taught yourself how to learn very quickly.
Yeah, and that's something
And
that
that
they
just came
actually
from
they
trying-
do look at that, by the way.
Okay.
They look at someone who's able to pick up skills super fast and is able to just kind of run with it.
Yeah.
And it's always about not saying no to things, right?
Okay.
Even if you might not like it. I don't know if there's anything that I don't really specifically like. Like, it's all, for me, it's more about the end product as opposed to like the work
That
leading
goes
up
into
to
it.
Yeah.
So like a normal product design interview that many people have seen online on Medium, or speaking from my own experiences, like, you know, you show 2 portfolio cases, you show some intentionality, some
Yeah.
research, some sketches, some pretty shiny thing with, you know, a cool swipe animation.
Yeah.
To very much dumb it down. And maybe an app critique or like a design challenge on a whiteboard, right? I don't even think you can do a whiteboard challenge for VR unless you like go through the board. So like how do you, what does that even, what do you, yeah. how does that
In
work?
my portfolio site, actually, it's good that you asked that because I am an artist, right?
Yeah.
Like I basically focus on creating 3D environments and
Yeah.
scenes to make them look good and make them look convincing. But on the side of that, when I started NeoTrade, right, I started to learn how to like visual script in Unreal Engine,
Okay.
which is basically just fancy C++. And I got really into, like, I didn't realize it, but I really enjoyed, hey, what's my problem? How do I solve that problem? And how did I execute it? Right? And that was literally how you break it down. So in my website, I have art and then tech. And tech has that where I actually go through my thought process of how do I design a good locomotion system, right? Like how do you move around the space that's not actually there? That's hard.
Yeah.
Right?
And then communicating that information.
Yeah. So it's all just about like GIFs. GIFs are great.
Okay.
Because you can take quick snippets of like what you were doing, right? Like in the
So you're showing, not telling, essentially.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but you do have to write it down because people really do look at your thought process behind it. Because I think there's something in programming as well that anyone can write code. It's about how you get there. That's like what's really important. And I think that's true to a designer as well, right? It's like you need to have a clear goal and like people want to know how you brain things and how it works to move to that goal, I guess, if that makes any sense.
So we went ahead and polled all of these student design groups that exist on Facebook or Medium, and people that we know who want to get into design or who are already in design as well. All right, cut that. All right, cue this
Just
up
keep
again.
talking.
Yeah, you can just.
Yeah, just
Okay.
yeah.
So we went ahead and polled all these student design groups on Facebook or people that we knew along with Medium, and these are the kind of questions that came up, or the most common occurrences.
Okay.
The first question we have is, what is one thing about the student design community that the industry at large, the design industry at large, doesn't understand too well?
I guess some of the things that at least in school, that we learn, right? Like we're expected to make realistic 3D assets. And I can't really speak to the product design community, but I can speak to like the game art and etc. We're expected to learn realistic 3D, and that is because that's industry standard. But here, I'm not doing that, right? I have a passion for like stylized art, and I'm kind of getting to explore that. But we have a phrase that's like a bad phrase. That's visually sophisticated, and if something is not like photoreal, it's not visually sophisticated at our school, which I don't think is like that. I don't think like look at any stylized game. Do you think it's visually sophisticated?
I would think so.
Yeah. So that's a huge misconception that I guess school and like that community puts on. That is not true everywhere in the industry.
Cool.
Making photoreal assets might give you a broader like spectrum of like jobs, but making art is important.
How are you able to manage so much in your personal life, work life, and academic life?
So let's be real, we don't have any personal life. I'm probably what you would call a workaholic, and I do try to keep that as a balance because I hit a very like rough point in school when I just worked for like days. I was pretty much pulling 4 all-nighters, binging sleep for like 18 hours, and then just going back again for a straight month.
And now looking back on that, do you think that was the right thing to do?
No.
Okay.
I thought that was stupid. And I did it because I had an obsession, and a professor told me that I would fail if I chose like this model that was really difficult to complete. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, dude, fuck you. Like, I'm going to do it anyways. And I pulled it off. It kind of like took a toll. And I did learn a lot from it. So no matter what, it's kind of like a quid pro quo, I guess, IDK.
So it's the question about how you're able to manage it. I assume that schedule you weren't, but coming up, what are your plans to improve that, right? Because there's people who might think that, to succeed in this field, I need to be.
You don't have to be a robot, right?
Okay.
Like when you think about it, you're gonna get good eventually if you keep working at it, right? As an artist, if you sketch every day, you're gonna get good at drawing. If you like do something every day, you'll be fine. You might not be able to like hit it quicker, right? Like I'm probably been able to like hit the mark quicker because I had a huge passion, and I kind of just like sometimes I'll stay up till 5 a.m. just because I get in the zone and I'm just going.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that to be good at what you do. You just have to. Probably the best advice I could give with that is look at yourself critically, see where you're missing the mark, and then build from that. And then look at other people critically, like look at your idols, and straight up be like, that's awesome, I want to make that, but then also see what's wrong with it to see how you can make it better.
Okay. How did you get your first job or internship in the field of VR design?
Of VR? Well, this one would be the first one in that, I guess. At least that I wasn't my own boss.
Yeah.
As easy as it is just apply. And that's not really easy. It's just about always working towards bettering like your skills. Like even when I go home after my internship, I'm working on my thesis because I want that to be awesome. I want to be able to submit that at the end of the day to E3 and hopefully get something, or just say that I did that and like better my skill. Even my boss, Ocean, or I guess he's my manager, Ocean Quigley, who he was art director for the Sims games.
Okay.
He's awesome. He's super talented and smart, and he goes home every day and works on his own shit. Even though he has a full-time job, he has kids in the family, he's still always bettering himself at his craft, because if you don't, you just kind of like become stagnant.
Yeah.
And you don't want that, especially as an artist. It's kind of like not work. It's just
like, it's like playing a sport. Like you don't play basketball for a couple of weeks and you try to shoot. Like
you're gonna miss. Yeah. Exactly.
So for students, mentorship is very hard to find, especially if you're not in an art school or design school. if you go to school in some remote area, it's very hard to, even find like a design meetup or a dribble meetup or whatever goes on. So where do you find your inspiration or your mentorship?
So there's a couple things that I could touch on, right? You can actually just email someone.
Yeah.
I've straight up had conversations with like industry professionals just because I decided to be like, hey man, I really like your work. Like I'd like to be like you someday, and don't like be weird about it. Just straight up be like, you're making cool shit. Keep making cool shit.
Yeah.
If you ever have a chance, maybe later on down the road, they'll look at your shit and they'll be like, oh wow, that's
like,
cool.
Or
like, oh
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like there's people that have been specific influences with me because they've been in similar, I guess. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I have a friend of mine, Eddie, or Edgar Ortega. He's now working at Phenomena with Robin Henneke. Okay. They're making some VR indie games. Pretty cool. Yeah. It's called Luna. But he pretty much, he went to my high school, and then he went to Ringling, and then he graduated and went to Intel. And I was just like, holy shit, this guy is doing what I'd like to do. Yeah. And funny enough, I'm good friends with his sister, so like I kind of just
out. Yeah. So in the same way, you would recommend that, like,
look at your life and look at, like, in general, like, people are people. Like, don't be scared just because they're like, oh my god, it's Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you were to, like, go into his office and, like, be like, hey man, blah, 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 I'm pretty sure he wouldn't just be like, you can't be here, right?
Maybe.
Well, maybe.
Yeah. So, but like, we have these things where, like, you see people's stuff on Dribble, or you see the people's stuff on Medium, and you're like, wow, and then you immediately think like, I can't do that. But rather, you're saying shift your mindset.
I've never once thought that I can't do that, like, ever. That's a mindset that's just toxic to your, like, development as an artist and a designer. Like.
No, that's that. I would agree. Yeah. So you obviously made, big professional strides, and you've done a lot. So if a listener, let's say, reached out to you and asked you, how do I get into this field, what is the first thing you would tell them?
Work. Like, straight up, it's at the end of the day, it's about, like, your work. There's two things. It's work, and then don't be an asshole. Like, people will not work with you if you're an asshole. And I see that a lot, that some people are just very not nice, or they can't deal with people, or they can't communicate. And that really does hurt them in their professional life. Something that people have told me is that I'm good at networking, and I'm like, how am I good at networking? It's just because I like talking to people. Yeah. It's more about, it's a social skill, and for some people that comes easier than others, right? But realistically, if you want to get into VR or any 3D medium in general, just work. Find out who is, like, at the top, or, like, who you admire, and really work to get there, right? Follow a shit ton of people on Twitter, like, hit them up, like, do whatever. Go on, like, if you're interested in games, like, Epic Games, they have a huge community, and they like, their documentation for the engine is insane, and they do live streams every Tuesday. So, like, they'll just sit there and they'll be like, this is a cool new thing. And it's like, holy fuck, like, what do you mean? And it's just knowledge everywhere that you can just kind of, like, grab.
Tap into.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our final question, what's next?
Next? Well, maybe I'll come back here, right? And
here's on Facebook.
Yes. Okay. After graduation. But my main goal in life is to have my own company and start, like, make games. That's ultimately what I'm in it for. Here I have a unique opportunity of working, like, with a bunch of talented people, and it's, like, VR, which is something that I'm super interested in, and, like, the medium in general is something that I really want to, like, delve myself into. I'm doing it for thesis as well. But ultimately is to make some dope ass indie games and, like, make people, I guess, like, experience something, like, feel something. That's what most artists are in it for.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us.
Of course, man.
Students Who Design is written and produced by Sahil Koja and Omar Abdul Rahim. Visit our website, studentswho.design, for more information.